E-Biology class, Fatima Convent High School, myself, Dipali. Chapter 7, Control and Coordination, Class 10. We understood how an animal or a organism controls and coordinates various activities in their body. Now let us see, does plant also follow the same system or has any system which controls and coordinates various plants' activity? Now we know that animals can walk, animals can move from one place to another in response of the stimuli given from the environment. But what about a plant? Can a plant walk or move to protect itself or can respond to a stimuli in the same manner as animals do? Can the plants do that? Then what is the system which helps the plant to respond to the stimuli? Now, animals have a nervous system for controlling and coordinating the activities in the body. But plants neither have a nervous system nor muscles. Then, how do they respond to the stimuli? When we touch a leaf of chui mui, the sensitive or the touch me not plant of Mimosa family, also known as Mimosa pudica, they begin to fold up and droop. Isn't it surprising and strange? Yes, they do. When a seed germinates, the roots goes down and the stem comes up into the air. Who does this? How it happens? Firstly, the leaves of sensitive plants move very quickly in response to touch, whereas there is no growth involved in this movement. On the other hand, the directional movement of seedling is caused by growth. It is prevented from growing. It will not show any movement. So, plants show two different types of movement, one dependent on growth and other independent of growth. So, the two different types of movement in the plants which help to respond to the stimuli are growth dependent and growth independent. Now let us see how do these work or how do a plant detect the touch and how do the leaves move in its response. Now let us think about the first kind of movement such as that in sensitive plants. Since no growth is involved, the plant must actually move its leaves in response to touch. But there is no nervous system nor any muscle tissue. How does the plant detect the touch and how do the leaves move in response then? For an example, let us think of a sensitive plant like Mimosa pudica as shown in the figure. The first diagram is showing the normal plant, but second diagram is showing the response to the stimuli where the leaves have been folded. How did this happen? What happened to the leaves and what mechanism worked in folding the leaves? If we think about where exactly the leaf is touched and what part of the plant actually moves, it is apparent that movement happens at a point different from the point of touch. So, information that a touch has occurred must be communicated. The plants also use electrochemical means or electrical and chemical means to convey the information from cell to cell. But unlike animals, they do not have any specialized tissues in the plants for conduction of information. Finally, again as in animals, some cells must change shape in order for the movement to happen. Instead of the specialized protein found in animal muscle cell, plants change shape by changing the amount of water. So if you try to differentiate this in the plants and animals, then the amount of water will result in swelling or shrinking, and therefore the change in shape occurs. So we can easily understand this, that when we try to differentiate the coordination in plants and animals, then animals have nervous system for controlling and coordination of their body activities, but plants do not have nervous system nor muscles. Unlike that in animals, the plants do not possess any muscular tissue or any specialized protein. Even then, the plant cells change their shape by changing the quantity of water contained therein. The cell expands or swells when the amount of water therein increases, and the plant shrinks or contracts when the amount of water is reduced or decreased. So, unlike the animals, the plants have no tissue to pass any message from one tissue to another. Yet the plant cell can pass electrical and chemical signals and thereby convey this information from one cell to another. So we can say that the plants have a coordination system which is controlled by the level of water in them. You must have seen the plant leaves withering if you have not watered them for a long time. As soon as you pour water into the pot, the plant leaves will again become healthy as before. How did this happen? This was because the amount of water increased or decreased in the cell. When it decreases, it folds, it shrinks. And when it increases, it swells and becomes in normal shape. So, the movement independent of growth is controlled by this type of mechanism. Now, let us see movement due to growth. Now, some plants like pea plant climbs up other plants or fence like means of tendrils. We know they are called as climbers. Now, these tendrils are sensitive to touch. How? When they come in contact with any support, the part of tendril in contact with the object does not grow as rapidly as the part of tendril away from the object. So you must have seen the tendrils folding like this way around a support. So the part which is in contact with the support will not grow, whereas the part which is not in contact with the support will grow. And because of that, we can see the folds in the plants. And that gives us the shape of the tendril. So you can imagine this as a support and the other as the tendril moving over the support. Now because of this difference in the growth of that particular area, you feel that the stem is winding around the support and it helps to climb further. So this causes the tendril to circle around the object and thus cling to it. More commonly, plants respond to stimuli slowly by growing in particular direction. Because this growth is directional, it appears as a plant is moving. Let us understand this type of movement with the help of example. Now we are taking a conical flask filled with water. Cover the neck of flask with a wire mesh. Keep 2 or 3 freshly germinated bean seeds on the wire mesh. Take a cardboard box with it which is open from one side. Keep the flask and box in such a manner that the open side of the box faces light coming from a window. After 2 or 3 days, you will notice that the shoots bend towards light and roots away from the light. Now turn the flask so that the shoot are away from light and roots towards light. Leaves leave it undisturbed in this condition for a few days. Have the two older part of the shoot and root change the direction? Yes, they will change the direction. There are there difference in the direction of new growth? Yes. What do we conclude from this activity? We conclude that after turning the flask and leaving it undisturbed in this condition for a few days, we observe that the shoot bends towards light and root bends away from the light. After turning the flask, the position of shoot and root changes. That is, shoot goes away from the light and roots turn towards light. But after a few days, shoot again shows bending towards light and roots move away from the light. So, we can say easily that plants show positive phototropism and roots show negative phototropism. Now, what is meant by tropism? The word tropism means if the movement in a plant organ is induced by an external and directional stimuli, it is called tropism or tropic movement. The movement induced by external and directional stimulus is called tropism. And there are various types of tropism depending on the stimuli. If light is the factor, it is called phototropism. If earth is the stimuli, it is called geotropism. If water, hydrotropism. If chemicals or hormones, then chemotropism. And if touch, then thigmotropism. Now this tropism can be positive and negative. If it is in the direction of the source, it is called positive. And if it is against the direction, then it is called as negative tropism. So you can observe that environmental triggers such as light, gravity will change the direction that plant parts grow in. These directional or tropic movement can be either towards the stimuli or away from it. So in two different kinds of phototropic movements, shoot responds by bending towards light while root responds by bending away from it. How does this help? Now plants show tropism in response to other stimuli as well. The roots of plant always grow downwards while the shoot usually grows upwards and away from the earth. This upwards and downwards growth of shoot and roots respectively is response to the pull of earth or gravity, is obviously geotropism. If hydro means water and chemo means chemical, it is hydrotropism and chemotropism. Can we think of examples of kinds of directional growth? One example of chemotropism is the growth of pollen tube towards the ovules. about which we will learn when we examine the reproductive process of living organisms. Let us now once again think about how information is communicated in the body of multicellular organism. The movement of sensitive plant in response to touch is very quick, and the movement of sunflower in response to day or night, on the other hand, is quite slow. Growth related movement of plant will even be slower. Even in animal body there are carefully controlled directions to growth. Our arms and fingers grow in certain direction, not haphazardly. So controlled movements can be either slow or fast. If fast, respond to stimuli are to be made, information transfer must happen very quickly. For this, a medium of transmission must be able to move rapidly. Electrical impulses are an excellent means for this, but there are limitations to use of electrical impulses. Firstly, they will reach only those cells which that are connected by nervous system, not each and every cell in the animal body. Secondly, once an electrical impulse is generated in a cell and transmitted, the cells will take some time to reset its mechanism before it can generate and transmit a new impulse. In other words, cannot continuously create and transmit electrical impulses. It is thus no wonder that most multicellular organisms use another means of communication between cells, namely chemical communication. So, both electrical impulse and chemical impulses are important. If instead of generating a electrical impulse, stimuli cell releases a chemical compound, this compound would diffuse all around the original cell. If other cells around have a means to detect this compound using special molecules on their surface, then they could be able to recognize informations and even transmit it. This will be slower, of course, but it can potentially reach all cells of the body, regardless of nervous connection, and it can be done steadily and persistently. These compounds or hormones used by multicellular organisms for control and coordination show a great deal of diversity. As we could expect, different plant hormones help to coordinate growth, plants, and response to the environments. They are synthesized at place away from where they act and simply diffuse to the area of action. So these chemicals, special chemicals which are responsible for these type of electrical and chemical impulses are called hormones, and they are present in plants as well as animals. Let us first study about plant hormones. Let us take an example that we have worked in earlier activity. When growing plant detects light, a hormone called auxin synthesizes at the shoot tip helps the cell to grow longer when light is coming from one side of the plant. Auxin diffuses towards the shady side of the shoot. This contraction or concentration of auxin stimulates the cell to grow longer on the side of the shoot, which is away from the light. Thus, the plant appears to bend towards light. Did you understand how the mechanism works? Another example of hormone are gibberellins, which like auxin helps in growth of the stem. Cytokinin promotes cell division, and it is naturally then that they are present in greater concentration in areas of rapid cell division, such as in fruits and seeds. These are examples of plant hormones that help in promoting growth. But plants also need signals to stop. So, abscisic acid is an example of hormones which inhibits growth. It affects includes wilting of leaves. So you can see these are the three important hormones of the plants. Did you understand this very clearly? Let us just have a quick recap of all what we studied. Plants show two types of movement, that is, one is due to growth and one is independent of growth. So, plant movement can be classified into two broad groups. Growth dependent and growth independent. Now, growth independent is due to the increase and decrease in the concentration of water that either shrinks the cell or expands the cell. Because of that, we see shrinking of that part or swelling of that part. Whereas growth dependent is due to certain hormones and it shows the following tropism. That is, the movement induced by external and directional stimuli is called tropism. The factors could be light, showing phototropism. This too can be positive and negative phototropism. Positive phototropism, negative phototropism. Yes, so the stem will show positive because it is moving towards the light, and roots will show negative phototropism because it is moving away from the light. Whereas in geotropism, positive, negative. Roots are positive because they are moving towards the stimuli and stem is moving away from stimuli. If you take example of hydro, then we know that roots again are positive hydrotropism and stem is negative hydrotropism. Chemotropism also shows positive and negative. And we have the pollen tube. Showing positive phototropism, and thigmotropism is due to touch, that is in Mimosa pudica. Positive, negative. Mimosa pudica. Did you understand this? Now, the electrical impulses are not enough in plants for the growth or for the movement, and so they take help of chemical communication as well, because the electrical impulses has limitations. Electrical impulses will reach only those cells that are connected by nervous tissues. They cannot coordinate with each and every cell like in animals, and the electrical impulses in the nervous cell cannot continuously create and transmit electrical impulses, and therefore we need one more system, that is chemicals, and they are hormones. The hormonal coordination achieved by specialized compounds helps in faster communication or faster control and coordination of the plant body. The hormonal coordination is slow, but it can potentially reach to each and every cell. And because of that, for this purpose, the plant has growth promoting hormones like auxin. Which are the different hormones in plants? The auxin, growth promoting, they are auxin, gibberellin, they help in growth of stem. Auxin helps in growth of shoot tip so that they can bend towards and show phototropism. Cytokinin, which is naturally present in higher concentration in areas for rapid cell division so that the fruits and the other parts grow faster. And you have growth inhibiting, that is abscisic acid. So these are the different plant hormones which help in control and coordination of the plant. In the next session, we are going to study about animal hormones. Thank you.